Hey guys, this is Alexi for PokerVIP.com, and I'm coming to you for video 3 of 3 of my PLO miniseries on bluffing. And in this video, we're going to be putting it all together and trying to do a little detective work and try to figure out if the bets we are facing are bluffs or value bets. And we're going to be getting some reads on tendencies. I'm just going to be looking at what opponents do, and then we're just going to get into that. Again, if you haven't seen my first two videos, the first video was actually about taking notes, and the second video was actually about pre-flop ranges, and those two things are actually interconnected. So without those two things, this video is kind of moot. So you do want to go back and look at those videos first, and then check out this video, because we'll just be covering the topics that the past two videos touched upon, and this is kind of like the end result. Keep well written notes. This was discussed in video 1. Villains aren't playing too loose or too tight. We went over them playing loose and playing tight in the second video and how that affects the ranges. But if they're actually playing well, there could be other clues. Some of those other clues could be timing. This is actually the timing it takes for them to make their bets, either real quick or real long, and also bet sizing. This also has to do with their bets, if the bets are on the big side or the small side, and both of these things can be a read, and we'll actually look at some examples and try to get some reads on villains. So today we're just going to look at kind of like a wrap-up video of my 3-part series on bluffing, taking notes, and making reads. And before we get into it and get into some hands, I'm just going to go over the importance of making notes and taking reads again, because I've just been reading a lot of hands on the forums, and they are good hands and very interesting discussion, but they do turn into a vacuum discussion a lot, because there aren't reads, and if you don't have notes or reads on villains, and then you're looking for the best line or the best answer, it's kind of tough, and there's almost no correct answer, because the villain's ranges are what he can have essentially. It's really like up to a guess, and the more reads on you have on him and the more notes you have on the villain, the more it kind of I guess limits him to what he can have, and that makes a hypothesis, or it makes a guess at what he actually has and how to play against them a lot better and a lot more useful. So it's definitely good to just always post notes and reads that you have on your villains, because that's going to help you playing against him as well. And it's definitely a good exercise. Just taking notes, but they don't necessarily have to be HUD notes. HUD notes do help, but they're not the best type of notes in my opinion. I think the best kind of notes are just showdown and like how a villain plays certain hands, because those do help the best, because you can actually just get the HUD stats like that, so you can figure out how loose or how aggressive they're playing pre-flop, which isn't hard. But any kind of reads or notes do help and make the hand make the decisions easier to figure out, especially on the turn and the river, where they're the most important. But we're just gonna look at some hands. We're going to look on the right table most of this video. It's a heads-up match against this was a 6-max, but it broke up, so now we're playing heads-up versus Poker Trench. And since we will be playing against just him, we're going to see a lot of hands against him and strictly him, and it's going to give us a lot of notes and a lot of reads on exactly what he's doing and how he's playing and what's actually going on. So it's going to help us, especially if we have some notes and the table begins to fill up. So we're actually going to have reads on him strictly. But let's look at some interesting hands against him. This is the first hand of note against Poker Trench. We have pocket kings here, pretty bad pocket kings, and he goes ahead and 3-bets us. We decide to call. This is actually not it is actually probably normal heads up to call that 3-bet, but he does barrel the flop, and our notes on him is that he min check raised 2-pair on the turn, and it wasn't the nuts. It might have not just been a bluff, and he has been 3-betting us a lot pre-flop. So he's just very aggressive, and he does make take aggressive moves with air a lot. So because of that, the 7 it does complete a lot of things, but we can actually go ahead and call because he does show up with air a ton. So we might have to call a lot of rivers too, especially that one. But he goes ahead and checks, and we check back because he just has a lot of air. Like there, he had pocket 10s, which they're a bit of a showdown hand, but he decided to turn them into a bluff and bet with them on the flop and the turn. So our reads definitely helped us there, and this very next hand, they're going to help us a little bit too. Since he's very aggressive and just bluffs a lot, we're going to check raise here instead of just betting. We're going to let him bet his air balls and just like all kinds of bluffs, and then we're going to come in with a value check raise here. And if we didn't have the read that he was aggressive and capable of doing, like, making bluffs and plays, the best play would just be to bet probably. But since we know he's going to give us a little bit of money on the turn, we can check and get that money, and then we can raise right after. So there's a lot of interesting hands versus him, and this is another one. The very next one is also kind of interesting. We open and flop open at a straight draw and go ahead and hit it on the turn. And he just really pot bets really quick against us. And against normal players, this is like always the nuts or like a flush, because an instant pot bet means strong. But against him, not necessarily. He has a lot of bluffs. He has been raising a lot, and here he decided to turn a pair of 4s into a bluff on the turn, and he just insta potted us. So those reads kind of helped us in all those 3 hands, and they definitely are helping us play well against him and adjust to what he's doing correctly. So without those reads, those hands could have been complete disasters. And I'm not sure what buttons I would have pressed, and definitely would have been hard. So this is just an instance of this is me taking the note of what he did on the last hand with the quick pot bet with just a 4. So right, so with all those notes, it did help us play very well against them, and we're gonna see if some more spots come up against them where we can use what we know and to play against them. We're gonna get into another interesting hand with Poker Trench on the right, and we do begin to have a lot of notes on him, and you will tend to notice against aggressive players, and especially heads up playing aggressive players, you're just gonna get a ton of notes because they do very creative stuff and bluff a lot, raise a lot, so you're gonna get a ton of notes. And yeah, we ended up getting a lot of reads on him, and here on the right we flop an open-ended straight draw, and there's nothing to do but call. There's not really a reason to raise him because we just want him to bluff, and we have a lot of equity, and we don't want to raise him off his bluffs really. So we go ahead and call on the right. And it's kind of slow because there's a big hand on the left, and I have like a boat, and I'm gonna get raised. But anyway, we turn the nuts here against him, and it's gonna be interesting here because he, like always, he is probably going to bet, and the question is how much do we raise it to, because we do want to get value here, but we don't want to blow him off all of his bluffs. So I think the right raise is about 140 or 120, something small that gives him a chance to re-raise us. And I went ahead and made this too big, and I think with all the reads I have, this is just way too big, and it's a mistake. If I made it at 140, I think that gives him a chance to do something creative and bad, good for us, and put in a lot more money with a hand that is obviously drawn dead pretty much. So that was a mistake, and I think with all the reads I should have made the right play and just made it a little smaller there, or a lot smaller there, but I didn't, and that happens. So a player joined us, and I guess on the right, and we're not playing heads up against Poker Trench anymore, and that's kind of unfortunate because we did have a lot of reads on him, and from what I remember, I think he actually gets felt to this hand and he leaves, so that's also quite unfortunate, and that does tend to happen sometimes. you get a lot of notes on a player and he leaves, or he gets felted, or gets loses a bind and leaves. But it actually gives us a chance to play with the new player heads up, and we're actually gonna begin to start taking notes on him as well. And it's obviously quite easy to do that, especially when you're playing heads up. You only have one opponent to focus on, and you can begin kind of to like assess of what he's doing and like what he's all about. So we ended up playing with the new player heads up, and the traffic is kind of dead on the US side, so you're going to be playing, well, I'm going to be playing heads up a lot, and just to start the games, you're going to need to play heads up, and if you don't want to lose money playing heads up, and you don't want to just get felted, you got to be on top of your heads up opponent and just taking a lot of notes and trying to figure out what he's doing. And I think from what I remember, I begin kind of like taking notes and trying to figure them out pretty quickly in this. And right, so we actually have a flush here, and since we don't know much about him, we're just gonna kind of just check call, just see what he does. And I don't think we got a showdown there, but we do kind of begin to take notes very soon, and they are going to help us against him all through this match. So we make a note on Frankie that he plays his hands pretty face up, and that just means he's kind of like, our initial note on him is he's kind of tight aggressive. He plays his hands face up. When he has it, he bets. When he doesn't, he checks. That's kind of like the feeling we get playing maybe like 10 hands with him. And we're gonna see if that if that's confirmed, if that's right, or if maybe we are wrong on that. Because sometimes 10 hands isn't enough to try to get the right read. So this is a little later. I isolated aces with the diamonds in the small blind, and there are more players at the table, and but we do get in a lot of pots with Frankie, and I think I just misclick here and bet, or no, never mind. Well, this hand is very important, but the next one is, and we kind of learned that like our initial read on Frankie wasn't right. Like he's actually kind of like, he's probably like the weak spot at the table. He's very cally, like he calls a lot, like he just limped there, and he does tend to call with hands that aren't that good. Like he just calls a lot, and like it's not really. I don't think he raised like once or one in like 3-handed pots, but in this pot, Carter isolated in the small blind with probably like aces one suited or aces double suited or like a suited rundown, and he makes two fairly big bets on the flop and turn, and it's pretty obvious that he has like the nuts here, or like at least pocket tens, and Frankie just doubles them up with from what I remember, like the third nut, or the jack high flush, and that's kind of what he was doing the whole time. He kind of was just like floating around, like limping hands that probably shouldn't even be limped, and just kind of getting it in pretty bad, and we just weren't getting into hands with him. I guess we were a little unlucky, but yeah, we actually get into a hand here with him, and we have double suited ace king with the pocket threes, and I think we misclicked somewhere here, or never mind. Now I think Frankie just bets 10 cents, which just means he has like ace 10 or like ace 5, just like a pair, and probably beats us, but we go ahead and raise him because we have the nut flush with the gut shot, and this is like tough for him to play. He probably he does fold, and it's kind of like another reason he was just kind of like weak. Like he kind of just like makes those blocker bets that don't really accomplish anything except let us blow him off his hand like every time. So he kind of like passed his money around to the whole table, and we didn't really get any hands, and that does happen. sometimes you have reads on a villain and like everything's right for you to take his chips, but it just doesn't pan out because you need the cards to do it. If you aren't getting cards, you shouldn't really like jump in front of the train to just get at the fish, like, because at the end, like, the other players are just gonna take all your money because like they're gonna have hands and they're just gonna get you. So you kind of just like let him spew his money off to you when you have a hand, and if you don't, he's just gonna, the other players will get him, and he's just gonna leave or rebuy, and that'll be that. But it's kind of interesting to see that the reads that we kind of got on him earlier, they were a little wrong, but they were still reads, and they did help us a little bit when the table ended up filling up, and they helped us in a few hands, but like even when there was other players at the table, those reads are still important, and you could definitely use them. So I highly recommend you try maybe to play a little heads up, no limit or PLO or what will you, and just practice making notes and taking reads. And we are having a lot of fun here because this is like one of the first days you can play poker for real money in New Jersey, so everybody's kind of like having a good time. But anyway, playing heads up is a really good way to practice taking notes and getting reads, and just really improving your game. And I highly recommend that. And thanks for watching this video, and I'll be back with you next time. This is Alexi signing off.